Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Rule Book Room. Today, we are discussing one of the most important Indian judgments of Muslim personal law delivered from the Supreme Court's landmark Triple Talaq decisions. The case is Masroor Ahmad versus State NCT of Delhi, decided by the Delhi High Court in 2008 by Justice Badr Durais Ahmad. At first glance, this appears to be a criminal case involving allegations of rape. But as the judgment unfolds, it becomes something much larger. The court is required to answer a foundational question of Muslim personal law. What is the legal effect of triple talaq pronounced in one sitting? To answer that question, the court travels through Islamic jurisprudence, the Quran, classical schools of Muslim law, the Muslim Personal Law Shariat Application Act 1937, the Dissolution of Muslim Marriages Act 1939, and modern Indian judicial precedents. The result is one of the most detailed judicial discussions of talaq found in Indian case law. Let's look at the facts. The marriage between Masroor Ahmad and Aisha Anjum was solemnized on 2nd April 2004 according to Muslim rites. A daughter was born from the marriage. According to Aisha, she was subjected to dowry related harassment and was eventually thrown out of the matrimonial home in April 2005. Masroor, however, claimed that she had left voluntarily. The couple thereafter lived separately. What happened next became the central controversy. According to Masroor, sometime in October 2005, he became extremely upset after efforts to bring his wife back had failed. In this emotional state and in the presence of two persons, he allegedly pronounced talaq 3 times. Significantly, he never communicated this alleged divorce to his wife. Life then took a strange turn. Instead of behaving like a divorced man, Masroor continued making efforts to bring his wife back. Eventually, in March 2006, he filed a civil suit seeking restitution of conjugal rights. Now, pause and think about that. A person who claims that he had already divorced his wife was simultaneously approaching a court asking that the wife return to the matrimonial home. Even more importantly, in his plaint, he described Aisha as his wife. There was absolutely no mention of any earlier talaq. On 13 April 2006, the matter was settled before the court. Aisha agreed to return. Masroor accepted her back. The court disposed the suit as settled. Immediately thereafter, the couple resumed cohabitation. They began living together as husband and wife. According to Aisha, sexual relations took place during this period because she believed that she remained lawfully married. Then another unusual event occurred. On 19 April 2006, a second nikah ceremony was allegedly performed. Masroor's explanation was that after the settlements, somebody reminded him about the earlier triple talaq of October 2005. Concerned about the legal validity of his marital status, he consulted a mufti. A mufti reportedly issued a fatwa stating that the earlier triple talaq should be treated as one revocable talaq. Since the iddat period has already expired, the parties could continue their relationship only through a fresh nikah. Accordingly, a second nikah was performed. Aisha, however, later claimed that she did not understand the true significance of this ceremony. According to her, signatures were obtained under the impression that they were merely formal documents. The marriage again disoriented. In August 2006, Masroor pronounced talaq once more. Subsequently, the proceedings were initiated before the Crime Against Women's Cell. During those proceedings, Aisha allegedly discovered for the first time that Masroor was claiming to have divorced her back in October 2005. This discovery became the foundation of the criminal complaint. Her argument was straightforward. If the October 2005 triple talaq had actually dissolved the marriage, then Masroor was not her husband between 13 April and 19 April 2006. Therefore, her consent to sexual intercourse during that period had been obtained through deception. Had she known that he was no longer her husband, she would never have consented. Consequently, she alleged that sexual relations amounted to rape under Section 376 of the Indian Penal Code. Therefore, an FIR was registered. The matter eventually reached the Delhi High Court. The core legal issue that we see in this case is that although the case was formally about rape, the entire prosecution rested upon a prior assumption. That assumption was that the triple talaq allegedly pronounced in October 2005 had legally dissolved the marriage. If the assumption failed, the rape allegation would collapse. Therefore, before deciding criminal liability, the court first had to determine whether the marriage had actually ended in October 2005. This transformed the case into a major inquiry of Muslim personal law. Justice Badr Durais Ahmad did not begin with the modern precedents. Instead, he began with first principles. He explained the foundations of Islamic jurisprudence. The primary sources are the Quran, Hadith, or Sunnah, Ijma, or consensus, Qiyas, or analogical reasoning. Using these sources, Islamic jurists developed various schools of law. The judgment notes that Indian Muslims are predominantly Sunni, following the Hanafi school. The court emphasized that Islamic law is not merely a collection of customs. It is a structured jurisprudential system developed through centuries of legal reasoning. This discussion is important because the court was trying to understand talaq not merely as a social practice but as a legal institution. The court then turned to Indian legislation. The Muslim Personal Law Shariat Application Act 1937 was central. According to Section 2, questions concerning marriage and dissolution of marriage among Muslims must be governed by Muslim personal law and not by contrary customs. The court observed that the statute recognizes several modes of dissolution: talaq, ila, zihar, lian, khula, mubarat. This is significant because it demonstrates that talaq is not the only method by which a Muslim marriage can end. Islamic law contains multiple mechanisms designed for different circumstances. The court also examined the Dissolution of Muslim Marriages Act 1939. This statute expands the rights of Muslim women by allowing them to seek judicial dissolution on various grounds. The judgment viewed that the 1939 Act as evidence of the applicability and reform oriented nature of Muslim law as administered in India. But before we proceed with this judgment, we will have to understand the three forms of talaq. The court then carefully explained the three classical forms of talaq. First, asan talaq. This is regarded as the most approved form. A single pronouncement is made during a period of purity. The husband then abstains from marital relations during the iddat period. The divorce remains revocable during iddat. Only after iddat expires does it become final. Second, Hassan Talaq. This involves three separate pronouncements during three successive periods of purity. The first two are revocable, the third makes the divorce final. And third, Talaq i Bidat or triple talaq. This is the controversial form. Three pronouncements are made at once. For example, I divorce you 3 times, or talaq, talaq, talaq. This is the form involved in the present case. One of the most fascinating aspects of this judgment is its treatment of historical Muslim law. The court observed that triple talaq was never regarded as an ideal form of divorce. Even classical jurists considered it sinful. The famous description repeatedly used in legal literature is bad in theology but valid in law. The judgment points out that Prophet Muhammad strongly discouraged this form. The Shia school generally do not recognize it as producing a valid divorce. Even within Sunni jurisprudence, there have always been debates about whether three pronouncements in one sitting should count as three divorces or only one. Thus, historically speaking, triple talaq occupied an uneasy position. It existed, but it was viewed as an innovation. It was tolerated rather than celebrated. It was legally recognized by some jurists despite being morally disapproved. The most important modern precedent discussed is the Supreme Court's decision in Shamimara versus State of UP. The Delhi High Court treated this decision as transformative. According to Shamimara, first, the talaq must actually be pronounced. Second, there must be a reasonable cause. Third, there must be an attempt at reconciliation. Fourth, mere assertion in pleadings that a divorce had occurred is not sufficient. Justice Badr Durraiz Ahmad adopted these principles fully. In his view, Muslim law in India could no longer be understood merely through 19th century colonial texts. It had to be understood through the constitutional and judicial developments represented by Shamimara. The major theme throughout the judgment is reconciliation. The court repeatedly refers to Quranic principles emphasizing attempts to save the marriage before bringing it to an end. The judgment treats reconciliation not as a formality but as a substantive requirement. The rationale is obvious. Marriage occupies a position of great sanctity. Divorce is permitted but not encouraged. The law therefore seeks opportunities for reflection, negotiation, and healing. This emphasis on reconciliation becomes one of the central reasons why the court rejects an instantaneous and irreversible understanding of triple talaq. Having surveyed classical law, statutory law, and modern precedent, Justice Badr Durraiz Ahmad reached his most significant conclusion. He held that triple talaq pronounced in one sitting should be treated as only one revocable talaq. This was a remarkable judicial development. The court reasoned that treating triple talaq as one revocable talaq better aligns with Quranic principles, the objectives of reconciliation, fairness to spouses, and modern judicial understanding of Muslim law. The judgment therefore rejected the harsh consequence that a momentary outburst instantly and irrevocably destroys the marriage. So the question, was the October 2005 talaq valid? The answer was no. The court gave several reasons. First, the alleged pronouncement occurred in extreme anger. Second, it was never communicated to Aisha. Third, there was no attempt at reconciliation. Fourth, Masroor's own conduct contradicted the claim that a divorce had occurred. A person who genuinely believes he had divorced his wife does not ordinarily files a suit for restitution of conjugal rights describing her as his wife. His subsequent conduct demonstrated that he himself continued to regard the marriage as subsisting. The court therefore concluded that October 2005 talaq was legally ineffective. Then, what about the second nikah? Once the triple talaq was found invalid, the answer becomes straightforward. The marriage had never ended. Therefore, The second nikah was unnecessary. It had no legal effect because the original marriage continued to exist. Finally, what was the consequence for the rape allegation? This finding effectively resolved the criminal case. Since the marriage remained valid between 13 April and 19 April 2006, the complainant continued to be petitioner's wife during that period. The entire prosecution theory depended upon the marriage having ended earlier. Once the premise collapsed, the allegation that sexual intercourse had occurred under a mistaken belief of marriage also collapsed. Accordingly, the offense of rape was not made out. This judgment is significant and it matters. The significance of this case extends far beyond the immediate dispute. The judgment represents an attempt to harmonize Muslim personal law with Quranic principles, established Islamic jurisprudence, statutory law, and modern constitutional sensibilities. Importantly, the court did not reject Muslim law. Instead, it engaged deeply with Muslim legal tradition and attempted to interpret it in a manner that promoted fairness, deliberation, and reconciliation. The judgment also challenged the assumption that triple talaq must always operate instantly and irrevocably. That reasoning could later influence broader judicial debates, culminating in the constitutional challenge to triple talaq before the Supreme Court. Masroor Ahmad versus State, NCT of Delhi, began as a criminal case and evolved into a profound discussion about the nature of divorce under Muslim law. The Delhi High Court held that the alleged triple talaq of October 2005 was invalid because it was pronounced in anger, never communicated, and was not preceded or accompanied by genuine attempts at reconciliation. More importantly, the court held that triple talaq should be treated as a single revocable talaq rather than as an instant and irreversible dissolution of marriage. The judgment stands as an important bridge between classical Islamic jurisprudence and modern Indian legal thought. It demonstrates how courts can engage seriously with religious legal traditions while simultaneously promoting justice, fairness, and preservation of family relations wherever possible. And that is what Masroor Ahmad, one of the most significant Muslim personal law decisions delivered by the Indian High Court in the years preceding the constitutional challenge to triple talaq itself. Thank you for joining in. Until next time, bye.